Today is March 3rd, 2011, and we are interviewing Leslie Oatman at the Communications Center at Buena Vista University. Mr. Oatman was born on November 11th, 1927. My name is Zoey Reisdorf, and I will be interviewing along with Matt Hudnall today. What were you doing before you entered the service?
Well, I was working for Dick Smith in the lumberyard. After I graduated in May, '46.
Where were you when you heard about the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
What?
Where were you when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Well, I was home and my brother came from uptown. We lived in Alda, and my oldest brother came home and he said that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor.
What did you and your family think about that? I mean, it's pretty big.
A little upset.
Yeah.
Because both my brothers was of age to go in the Army, and well, both of them ended up going in the Army.
You told us that your brothers were of age to go into the military when Pearl Harbor.
Yes, my oldest brother went in January of '42, and I think my other brother went in about '43.
Okay.
My oldest brother was in the invasion of Africa and Italy, southern France, and Germany, and he was killed between Mannheim and Heidelberg, Germany. And my other brother was in the 10th Mountain Division.
Interesting. So now, what did your family feel about that?
Well, we were rather patriotic. My great-great-grandfather was a Civil War veteran. He was captured at the Weldon Railroad Station, and he was a prisoner of war in Salisbury Prison, and Libby Prison, and let's see what the other one, Andersonville. And they released him because he got, everywhere he went he tried to escape. And they put him in a worse prison camp. And they finally released him because he was, so bad he couldn't do nothing. He had to sign papers that he'd never go back in the Army.
So, can you tell us any more about your brother that served in Africa, or
Not much. Just he was in a searchlight division in Africa and Italy. And when the Germans, the planes, they didn't have any more planes to shoot down, they pulled the guys that were in the searchlight divisions, and they lined them up and had them count 1, 2, 3, and they said every third one, take one step forward. And they put them in the 63rd Infantry Division.
Did your brothers ever write any letters home about their experiences?
Yes, but we stored them at my uncle's place, and mice got into it and chewed them all up.
Where were you during this time? Were you still?
I was going to school, in high school.
And you enlisted in 1946, is that right?
Yeah, June of 1946 I went in the Army. We all had to enlist in it.
What did you do after you were enlisted?
What did I do in the service?
Mm-hmm.
I went overseas in November of 1946, first part of November, and I arrived in Okinawa, I think maybe the 25th or 28th of November. I was seasick all the way over. Got real sick. Then I was a company clerk for about 4 or 5 months. Then Colonel Fickies came down and pulled me out of there and had me as his secretary for about 3 months, and I went out for a track team, and I got on the track team and got to go down to Manila and got to go up to the Philippines and precipitated in the 1948 Pacific Olympics in Tokyo, at Nalkinnick Stadium there. And well, I caught cold going up on the plane because I laid down in the bottom of the plane, and I caught cold, and I came in sixth. There were 6 of us running, and I came in sixth. But then when I came back, I went with a guy, a good friend of mine, and he was assigned to Gray's registration. Well, I got stuck there for about 3 months. And then Colonel Ficky's come down and picked me and took me up to headquarters at Buckner Bay. By the way, they had moved all of the stockpiles of things that clothes and such for the Quartermaster Corps from Naha to Buckner Bay during that time. And anyway, I was up at the headquarters in 561st QM Group with Colonel Ficky's and Colonel Gardner for about 2 months. And then Colonel Ficky's had me go down and train to be a chief clerk in the Quartermaster Laundry, which I was there for until I got come home to get discharged. That was be about maybe 12 months or 14 months. I can't remember how long.
Since you were around a colonel and stuff during those times, did you hear any news about what was going on in Japan? What was it like? What did you hear?
Oh, they had rumors around that there was going to be a war in Korea, and that's where it ended up happening.
Okay. So it was pretty nasty stuff. Were they talking about what was going on exactly, and did they believe that the war was going to end, or did you think you were going to have to see battle?
No, it was ended. The war had ended when I went in.
Okay.
What was the training like before you were shipped?
In basic training?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was sworn in at the what's one up in Minneapolis?
Snelling?
Yeah, I was sworn in at Fort Snelling, and I went to Fort Dix and took a Signal Corps basic there, and then they shipped me overseas.
Okay.
How was your encounter with the Japanese people?
They had non-fraternization, and well, in the Quartermaster Laundry, there was 350 to 400 Okinawans working there. And part of my duty was to pay them with an Okinawan interpreter with me all the time, and to check them over for burns. And if they had severe burns or they had Chinese rot, I had to take them up to the island hospital and sign them in up there to get them fixed up so they could come back and work. But as I say, we had non-fraternization. We weren't supposed to have anything to do with the Japanese at the time.
Then, did you travel around Japan, around the country?
No. Well, I got up to Baguio. They had us on R&R to Baguio. That was the summer capital of the Philippines. Beautiful place. Camp Hay was the place up there. And but outside of that, the people were so destitute that they were almost starving. I mean, they were that bad. And it wasn't too good a deal. Even in the Philippines, they didn't have much for an economy. In the southern part of Okinawa, where I was on, we was stationed on the southern part, and they had that cut off with so that you had to have a pass to go up to the northern part of the island, and the Okinawans couldn't pass unless they had a government pass and worked for the government. And it was completely flat. There was No buildings there. It all blew up.
What else do you remember about the trip over to Japan other than being sick, of course?
Oh, I got to meet a classmate of mine there, Don Hentz. He was in the GHQ band, and he took me up to the EM club, and that was an experience. Because after being on Okinawa and nothing there, you know, you know, it feels a little nice to get to a nice bar.
How did you and your friends and whatnot, and I'm sorry, and your buddies or whatnot, how did you entertain yourself while you were overseas?
Played a lot of cards, and they finally got a skeet range up at Buckner Bay, and on weekends I'd go up there. Of course, I was the only GI in that laundry, and there was 5 American civilians there. And one was a laundry superintendent, and there was 125 Filipino scouts that guarded it, and well, the immediate laundry officer was a second lieutenant, and he was a Filipino. His name was, last name was, it was Lieutenant Batista, and he was a real fine person. But outside of entertainment there, I had no entertainment. I'd work there, and then I'd go back to my little square hole in the Quonset hut that and I luckily got a hold of a radio, and that was my entertainment. Listen to the radio.
Did any of the guys you served with over there have any prior experience in the occupation of Japan, or did they see battle? Did they have any stories that they told you?
No.
No.
Most of them were all gone by the time I got over there.
Okay.
There was a few of them still over there, but they didn't say much.
Do you have any other memorable or unusual events or experiences that happened that you think of?
Not really.
No. How are the weather conditions in Japan?
You mean on Okinawa?
Yeah, I know.
Mild.
Mild?
Yeah.
Was it?
It got, in November, December, it got pretty chilly there one time. When we first got over there, we lived in a Quonset hut, I don't know, a few miles from where we worked, where our regular quarters were. Well, when they moved the other guys out of there, then we moved back in there to it was a 4474th platoon company, and they didn't have no shower. They had shower facilities, but you couldn't take a shower because it was cold. They finally got some heat in there, and so we could take showers. Got kind of smelly around there.
At the time, how were the relations between you and the Army and other branches like the Marines over in Okinawa? Did you guys get along? Or?
We didn't have any contact with them or the Navy.
Okay.
The Navy was on the north end of the island. I don't know where they had the Marines.
Huh.
I know they had a Marine cemetery over there, and then they had a regular Army cemetery. They had 2 different cemeteries.
Okay.
And they while I was over there, they exhumed all of the those that were killed in the battle for Iwo or Iwo. I don't know which way they pronounce it, Iwo or Iwo. But Ernie Pyle was buried there, and they dug him up and brought him over there to the island cemetery on Okinawa. And that's a story in itself. Then they dug him up and buried him in the Hawaiian cemetery. Then his wife had him dug up and buried down, I think, Fort Worth, Texas. Then when she died, they dug him up and took him to his hometown and buried him.
Nice little trip there.
Yeah, well, I watched that pretty close because I was in Grades Registration over there. And after I come back and I just kind of lost it,
Yeah.
What did you do after the war?
Come home and farmed.
What
Well, I worked for a while as a driver's license division clerk, and well, I've done a few things here and there. Worked as a part-time as a assistant marshal over at Alda. Did that for about 7, 8 years, along with farming to make a living.
What was it like when you came home? Was it hard to adjust back to?
Well, you got thrown into it, and that was it. There was, you just got thrown into it. You just can't explain it really.
Was there anything else that you'd like to share about?
What?
Is there anything else you'd like to share about your experiences or?
That's about it.